$1 million or 10,000 a month, which will you choose? This is actually a very fun topic, which I've seen debated many times before on forums. And today I have actually 5 key questions that can really reinforce your choice, because I guess you're already on one side. So without further ado, let's roll in the intro video. Hi guys, welcome back. Let's dive on to the first question, which is, what do you need the money for? Now, if you're young right now, 20s, 30s, and retirement's still very far away on the horizon, then perhaps this money you might need for some other life goals. For example, buying a first house or upgrading the flat that your parents are staying in. Then naturally choosing the 1 million option might be a lot better. The lump sum comes in handy. You can make a down payment for a property, say 500,000, and then the remaining figure out what to do with them. On the other hand, if you are in retirement or close to retirement, then perhaps $1 million is not the preferred option that you might be thinking of, because cash flow is more important in retirement than cash itself. If someone can provide you 10,000 a month, settle all your expenses for the rest of your life, then you are worry-free. Because the question of would you rather have $1 million or 10,000 a month can actually be flipped as, if you have $1 million, would you buy this product that gives you 10,000 a month or not? And right now, with the low interest rate environment, many retirees have $1 million and are looking actively for ideas on what they can deploy that cash towards, because the bank fixed deposits are just way too little right now. And speaking to here, I have a sub question to ask you to ponder a bit further. Why does it seem different if we think about it as, do you want $10,000 or 100 a month? It does feel a bit different, right? Even though it's still the same 12% rate of return that you can choose if you take the monthly option. I guess the reason is because $100 a month really cannot solve any financial goals. It cannot get anybody to retirement. That's why in that situation, the answer is very clear cut. You might as well take your $10,000 and do something spectacular with it. Because if you know how to compound that $10,000 effectively for 20 or 30 years, it can become a very big amount, which we will cover on point number 5. Question number 2 on how to decide between $1 million or 10,000 a month is actually, are you comfortable with managing investment risk or not? Now, if we have $10,000 extra to invest, it's pretty fun. Just buy stocks, just buy equities. In any case, you can't buy a car, you can't buy a property with it. The choices are very limited. And in any case, if you don't invest it well, you blow it, it's still pretty easy to recover that amount through employment and through income. However, if the equation now is $1 million, it looks a lot different, correct? You suddenly have a lot more investment choices, unlike having just $10,000. And suddenly there is this pressure to make sure that this $1 million that you have gotten is not squandered away, not into bad investment ideas. That's where we think twice about putting everything into equities. When it's just $10,000, sure, put everything into equities. But with $1 million, there could be a lot more desire to preserve it. Now let's look at some of the returns in the past for S&P 500. If you look for S&P 500 in 2008, they've actually lost 30% on the year. Now, if you have $1 million, losing 30% means a P&L return of minus $300,000. That is actually not the worst yearly return. In 1931, S&P 500 actually lost 43.8%. But there's more to note. Studies have shown that investors have actually exhibited herd behavior when it comes to investing. When something is hyped up, it gets overvalued, and actually new investors make the mistake of joining into a hype, and very soon when it comes crashing down, that actually results in big capital losses. Take for example meme stocks such as these. You realize that there's a very good chance that 10 years down the road, we'll look at these names and kind of laugh at it as why people actually put money towards them. Us as small investors, we've shown a tendency to invest poorly when it comes to a losing position. For example, you buy a stock where the company's fundamentals are deteriorating. We hold on to it too long just to hopefully get a break even before we exit. On the other hand, when a stock is doing well, we cash in on it way too early, and then again we get tempted to invest in the peak. If you think that is absurd, look at this story by Isaac Newton. He's actually lost a fortune in the bubble that he was facing during his era. So even the very smart people tend to get investment mistakes into their own portfolio, so we cannot assume that we are immune to bad investment choices. That is why many retail investors have actually underperformed the actual index performance. But on the other hand, if you are someone who is comfortable managing investment risks, this $1 million suddenly becomes a very powerful seed funding to get you to the multi-million level, correct? You can build serious wealth with it, and that links to the next question. Question number 3, what kind of returns are you confident in getting for the long term? And before I get there, inviting you to smash the like button because it's taken our team hours to prepare this presentation for you. And again, smash the subscribe, especially if you like discussion topics on finance and you want to know more about retirement planning. There's something that I'd like to highlight first, which is recency bias. Over the last 1 year, S&P 500 has actually delivered 30% gains. And that's why if we take a survey, I guess the number is a bit more inflated than in yesteryears, simply because of recency bias. We suddenly think 10% or 15% is nothing to shout about. But if we compare to the last 3 years for S&P 500, you realize that this 30% gain for a year is actually not sustainable, correct? Just to put it into perspective, if you have $1 million and you can get 30% per annum for 35.5 years, you actually get to $1 billion. That feels a bit off, correct? Getting to $1 billion eventually. If we look in terms of S&P 500 historical returns, the average return from 1926 to 2018 is roughly 10 to 11% only. And if we look from 1957 to 2018, it is only roughly 8% per annum. That is why I believe with $1 million, perhaps it's not very easy to invest everything into equities. There are ups and downs. It makes a lot more sense to diversify, to have, for example, fixed income and bonds into the portfolio to get a better risk-adjusted return. So if we use 5%, 8%, or 10 to 11% as what we've discussed so far as a long-term investment return, then suddenly the 12% that you can get choosing the option of $10,000 a month looks very appealing. Agree with that? Perhaps let's move on to question number 4. 12% yield suddenly looks very appealing, correct? And that leads to question number 4, which is how stable is this monthly income source? Even if this $10,000 per month doesn't change next month, what would happen to it next year or 10 years down the road? Who is guaranteeing that $10,000 per month to you? Is it a government pension? Is it a company pension? Is it a government bond or is it a company bond? In any case, when it's a bond, there's actually an investment grading to things. If you haven't seen before, S&P, Moody's and Fitch actually rate bonds. And if that 12% is coming from an investment grade bond, then that seems to be too good to be true, because right now investment grade bonds possibly trade between 1 to 3% only. And if we think in terms of a pension, a company can still go bankrupt, which means the pension can still be lost. Or if we think in terms of a government pension, will they change rules eventually? These are questions that you need to consider, especially if you are more interested in a $10,000 per month option. If it's really stable and stress-free for a very long period of time, then perhaps even $5,000 a month is very appealing already. So that's to give more perspective on which choice actually suits you a bit better. In any case, if this per month amount drops to $1,000 per month, guaranteed for the next 20, 30, 50 years, for example like a bank fixed deposit, suddenly that stability has not much of a use, correct? It's not even inflation proof, which means the $1,000 per month that you get 10 years down the road doesn't have the same purchasing power that you have today. Covering so far, we still haven't discussed a very important point, which is what happens if you die? Does that $10,000 per month go with you, or does it continue to be paid to your family indefinitely? Because if it's gone with you, you have to consider the equation suddenly doesn't look that good. That's what most pensions are actually designed for. They pay $10,000 per month, and then if you're no longer around, the cash flow stops. So in order to get $1 million worth of cash flow out, you'd have to have $10,000 per month for 8.5 years. You have to be at least alive for that amount of time before the option even is a break even to taking out 1 million one shot. So having added that new variable, does it change what you prefer now? With that, let's move on to question number 5, which is a very important rounding point. Ideally, what you want is to own the asset there, which is $1 million for example, and then have that cash flow out also. That'll be best of both worlds. And that's why question number 5 is, do you know how to compound money and get dividends for yourself consistently? Compounding is the 8th wonder of the world. That is when return on return is actually very powerful. Now, back in Warren Buffett's time, index investing was not present, correct? He was a stock picker. He was a company investor. And when he invests in a company, he's looking for stable dividends to be paid out so that he can use that money to invest into another company that pays at least the same internal rate of return that he is looking for. So for example, he buys Coca-Cola and Coca-Cola gives him $10,000 per month. He uses that $10,000 per month to go and buy into shares of See's Candy. And when See's Candy does well, they also pay him dividends. And that is where he has built multiple streams of cash flows for his investments. And that is actually how he's done compounding. Fast forward to today, you realize that there is index investing available already. You need not buy a particular stock. You can buy a broad basket of companies. And the instruments these days may even allow you to reinvest that dividend you receive automatically. So with that addressed, let's touch on having 12% yield per year. If we look in what is popular right now on the markets, 12% yield, I guess some ideas in the comment sections might be you can actually do options selling, or you can actually stake crypto coins to get 12%. These could be true, but they also have a different level of risk. And if we get back to a point mentioned previously, now the amount is $1 million, something that you want to preserve, you can't afford to squander. Then perhaps it's time to discuss further on how to invest this $1 million properly. Most equities are not going to pay you 12%. There needs to be a process to grow this 1 million pot first, and when it's big enough, then it can start paying you the 10,000 per month. The first step is to find an investment that gives you a rate of return of, for example, 8.5%. Hopefully this investment fits your risk appetite. The second step could be get this investment done for 11 years so that your $1 million grows to $2.45 million. Ideally, the third step would be to convert this $2.45 million to something that pays you a dividend of 4.5 to 5% per annum. A dividend yield of 4.5%, for example, will get you $9,200 per month if your investment is $2.45 million. If the dividend yield is 5% per annum, your investment of $2.45 million now gives you $10,221 per month in terms of cash flow. Suddenly, we may have a template of choosing this $1 million, investing in yourself, and building a cash flow up that could one day be more than $10,000. So the next leading question is, what can deliver 8.5% per annum for 11 years? And what can actually get 4.5 to 5% per annum? This is actually IHS Leaders Index. If you look at the grey chart over there, net total return, 1,000 becomes 2,450, which means also $1 million will get you 2.45 million. IHS Leaders Index actually invests in the REITs, and when most people invest in REITs, they focus on the blue line, which is the price, but they miss out appreciating the total return. Of course, this total return is the last 11 years. How will it look like moving forward? It's up to anybody's interpretation. And as always, past performance does not indicate future performance. But if you were to compound all the dividends received, you realize that we can potentially get that 2.45 million that we're aiming for. So the next question naturally will be how to invest into IHS Leaders Index. That can be done using Syfe REIT Plus. This video is done in collaboration with Syfe, and as a quick disclaimer, the ideas presented are solely for myself and meant to help you conceptualize an investment process. Syfe REIT Plus actually tracks the IHS Leaders Index. And as you can see in this image over here, the indicated yield is 4.5% for 2020, and for 2021 is projected to be 5.1%. And if we are concerned about compounding, because we need to get a bigger amount, correct? Syfe REIT Plus actually allows you to choose reinvestment option or dividend payout option to your liking. You can change between them as long as your investment is 20,000 and above. And as for REITs, there are always corporate actions such as rights issues, and this actually helps you settle all of that and track the index, especially as it changes along the year. And when you eventually build to the 2.45 million that pays you 10,000 a month, you realize that this investment diversifies for you into many REITs, which has many properties. And while still sector specific risks, I also like to counter suggest that most of us are comfortable buying a 2.5 million property anyway. The underlying assets for Syfe REIT Plus are all REITs, which are also invested into properties. So hopefully this big discussion has given you food for thought on how to manage your finances moving forward. Maybe one day you'll be presented this real option and you kind of know already from this discussion what to do. In any case, if you're keen to find out more about Syfe REIT Plus, check out this previous full tutorial. It'll give you all the insights you might need. And with that, I'll sign off. Thank you for watching till here. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and goodbye.